Wait, are we recording?
Yes.
Oh,
See,
You
this
said
is why
record.
this is why you need me here.
hello everyone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Blake Bullerdick, and I'm here today on the Crispy Animators Podcast with Alejandro and Sorme to talk about my experiences as a project manager and what I've learned in my production experience over the past decade. So don't forget to tune in, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button
Please do.
so that you can be notified every time there's an upload.
And if not, just comment.
And thumbs up. And comment.
Thumbs
No,
up.
not or.
All of it.
And. Do all of it. It's the
And don't
least
forget-
you could do.
Yeah, and don't forget we have Spotify too.
Yeah.
If you want to just do it there.
And you know how much all of that costs?
Help us.
Not a single
Help
thing.
us. Help us. Wow,
Enjoy the
Alejandro, you're
podcast.
making a face. Okay. Okay. I thought you were gonna say something, but
I
enjoy.
was gonna say
I'll let
I was
that
thinking about ice cream. I was like, I kind of want
Ooh.
some cookies and cream. Sorry guys.
Ooh.
Let's start the podcast.
Let's go. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I love
Oh
your
my
tiny microphone.
I missed you.
You guys too. I'm happy to see you.
Same.
I do like the microphone.
Thank you.
Is that what you did on our work calls?
Yes, at one point. Are we recording currently?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we got them for work, and then I had to buy some other microphones on my own card, so we kind of traded because this one was preferable and the least expensive. So, in any case, I like it because it's also useful for at-home karaoke, because it has
So
a USB 3 input. So,
Wow. I want one now.
the Filipino in me also loves it for the added, the crisp vowels that the filter allows.
Wait, you're Filipino?
A quarter, yes. I like to drop it in because nobody ever knows, and so I have to say it out loud.
I didn't
I
even
usually
know.
look Italian, and currently the fashion doesn't really help those accusations.
Wait, so you're a quarter Italian, a quarter Filipino?
No. I'm not Italian at all. Sorry, that was thrown off. I'm
You
a
want
quarter
to be...
Filipino. No, people never. They always are like, "Oh, you're something." Like you're not fully white. There's something in there, and they sometimes lean like Italian. It's never usually Asian. But Filipino, honestly, Pacific Islander kind of leans into the, that whole Euro-Pacific. It's all kind of a melting pot too. So
Learn something new every day.
I
yes,
know.
also and Josh, I'll say it correctly, Josh Simon, who we formerly worked with, is Filipino, and they've got a Filipino restaurant. So I actually saw him the other day because I went there. I always like to take an opportunity because I'm out here far away from home and stuff to like do true cultural things because I didn't really have it growing up in Indiana either. And so his family had this buffet that their restaurant hosted, and so I went over and had a bunch of Filipino food and hung out with Filipino people, and they played
That's
Filipino
cool.
music. So I've got to say it out loud now because it's not super duper obvious when just looking at me.
Wait, did you see him just by chance or knew that he was doing that on you?
He reached out. We've talked about being Filipino before, and we are still in contact. And I've mentioned going over to the restaurant a couple of times, and so he had just said something. And
you live in the same city, so that's possible. It's just I'm so jealous.
Yes, we're both in Los Angeles. Yes, that's what it is. It's a mixture of that. Plus, I'm also trying to be, I'm still in the midst of the unemployment saga. So like trying to stay like.
Don't worry, we are too.
Trying to say, so I'm trying to stay socially active and trying to stay like a part of the world without it being like, while staying cost effective and, not too like.
Exactly.
Certain things can be weirdly depressing that you don't expect, or like certain topics can like trigger like thoughts that get you spiraling. So it's kind of nice to just kind of do things that have not no connection, but that's not the basis of like why you're meeting or the conversation you're having,
I want to talk about what those things are that made you uncomfortable or depressed.
Wait. Before let's start.
Let's introduce it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We have.
Hey,
okay.
Classic me. I just go right in and just can't stop.
No, that's it happens every time. It's okay. So we have Blake with us here. We used to work with each other at Halon. He was our production coordinator, one of the best. He was on Atlas with me. I think you started with Atlas, right?
Yes. Well, I was on for a little tiny bit with Argyle, and then I started on Atlas as production coordinator. And then about midway through, there was someone left, and so I actually then got promoted to associate project manager and took over that. And that's kind of why I ended up kind of sticking like to Atlas like glue, because it kind of just became my thing a little
I
bit.
didn't know you got promoted in the middle. That's
yeah,
cool.
it was like August of 2022. It was like pretty quick when we were there, when things were like still chugging along. So, but yeah, the Atlas was like, over the 2 years I was there, that was definitely like the main one that I kind of was on. I'll have to remember to keep the microphone up here.
Oh yeah, you sound so different. Yeah, please do
it. Did you go to school to be a project manager?
No, I went to school for journalism, telecommunications and journalism, with a focus on actually news specifically. So I did a lot of like television journalism or video journalism, like visual storytelling and that aspect. But I find myself to be naturally curious, and I like asking questions, and I'm interested in random things. So that, when I was 18, and nobody really tells you like, this is it.
Yeah.
It just kind of checked a lot of boxes that I was still like kind of unsure of. It was something that that offered a lot of change while staying kind of traditional from day to day, but there was a lot of different topics and a lot of different people. It was fast paced because you were kind of changing things a lot of the time. There were deadlines, but it was also teamwork, and it wasn't purely individual, which when I came out here is where I found it really easily translated, maybe not one-to-one to post-production coordinating and production coordinating in general, but there were a lot of elements, especially with, I started in reality. I'll go through the whole rundown. So I started in journalism and did my news track thing, but then didn't go into a career with that at all. I stayed in Indianapolis for a year, where I'm from originally, and kind of just built a bank because I knew I wanted to come out to LA. I knew, even when I was in college too and doing journalism, the objective, even with journalism, was probably towards entertainment news. I love TV. I love movies. I love music. I love theme parks. Like, I love just like entertainment in general. And so I just knew, regardless of what it was that I was doing, I wanted to be out here. So I came out here, and I was a PA, a post-production production assistant, for 2 or 3, 4 years, and like kind of did office manager stuff, but like really learned the lay of the land, a lot of production.
Oh, no coffee runs or anything?
Oh no, all that. I was doing daily lunch runs for like 25 people, going to Jimmy John's with 20 credit cards and doing the whole single line, making sure everybody's order was there, sending out the email in the morning, getting everybody's order, putting it into a fax, faxing it to the restaurant, calling to make sure they got it, collecting everybody's payments, doing all that. Like, it's stuff that sounds really like whatever, but it can train you to be a little, like, it can open your eyes to like the inefficiencies that are like kind of dumb, or like ways to just kind of do that kind of group stuff. That's a weird way to say it, but like, I'm thinking in terms of like collecting notes or collecting any sort of group things, or getting people's availability. Like, that kind of communication stems all the way from that kind of thing, in my opinion. So like, being a PA for a long time, then being a production coordinator, and moving in that realm, it has given me a really weird, vast, like, kind of knowledge space.
Were they on projects that you liked, or it was just like
I did like them. I did a lot of, so when I first came out here, my longest career, like, so it's all technically freelance. That's what I'm used to. All of my like 10 years being out here has all been freelance. But I've been very lucky in that, especially with managerial positions, which is why it's kept me there for 10 years, is your ability to overlap on projects is a lot easier. It is a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of that kind of stuff, but it's not pure focus into one singular task. So there's a lot of ability to kind of, this one's starting in 2 weeks, but it's actually going to overlap for a week and a half with this one. We'll just keep you on. We'll pay you the same. It'll be busy for a little bit, but like, it'll guarantee you continuity. So so it was freelance, but it was all, it was nice to have somewhat steady work in that capacity. But that was working at 495 Productions, which is famous for Jersey Shore and Floribama Shore, and a lot of those. No, it's fine.
You said reality. I didn't believe you.
And it's that specific kind of genre, which I don't know. Stop me if I ever go off on too big of a tangent. One, because I can talk a lot, and two, I can talk about many
Keep going.
things.
I'm listening.
But those Jersey Shore and Floribama Shore, Party Down South is also one that's like was on CMT. That's a similar vibe, but they're all called fishbowl houses, similar to like Real World 2 or like anything that has like, you know, kind of like the security cam-esque cameras.
Yeah.
So like you're basically getting like 24, they're in a fishbowl. You're getting 24-hour coverage. You're getting their entire life, which is great in terms of content. But what then the big issue is when you get to post-production, which is where I was always focused, is you have 24 hours of footage from 27 cameras. All of it needs to be ingested so that everybody can edit with it and make story with it. But also, these people are just living their lives. Like, there are plans, you know, they go to these places, they have these jobs, they have these parties, but like,
isn't it scripted though? Come on.
I mean, here's the thing. I never just scripted, but honestly, not really. There's instances where like I said, like they set up their jobs, they set up like these instances where they have to go and do things, but casting is really like good. There's a lot of time spent on finding these people, and when you find people that have these big bombastic personalities and love a camera and love a party,
it just works.
When the ingredients are there, it hits like a flashbang, like Snooki. There's Jersey. It's hard to argue that Jersey Shore would be as big of a success without specifically her, and honestly, all of them. But like, even just to pinpoint like one person, she's still doing things 20 years later, and like, granted, who knows what those things are exactly, but like that's based on a personality and someone who, for all intents and purposes, knows how to turn it on to entertain. You know,
did you were you into reality shows at the time?
I did watch a lot of them. I'm 33, so I was in high school from 2005 to 2009, and then I was in college 2009 2013. So like that was all prime like VH1 Celebrity, Rock of Love, Flavor of Love, America's Next Top Model. Like, it was. I liked it because I think we were all naive enough and unsuspecting to realize how awful it was at the time, and how like how advantageous it was. And I think, I mean, granted, there's still elements of that, but I really do think comparatively, even when I look at people, I watch a lot of YouTube videos too, of people like looking at those, love a video essay. But I think there's a lot of people that look at those with a different lens, even 10 years out, that really show that there's been a change, even if it doesn't really always feel like it. Even with Jersey Shore, it's back then it was a different show, but they're still doing Family Vacation now, but it's them with their kids going on vacations, and it's like not all of this drinking, it's not all of this like partying, it's like it's really following these people, because it's like you followed them for 10 years. Like, you've literally, I don't know, I love the Real Housewives too, which I think is also the journalism aspect to all of it. I really like the reality shows that follow people and stories, as opposed to like the reality dating shows, or I love a competition show too. Traders, Big Brother, Survivor, those I'll watch. But
the only one I watch is Love Island, and I don't watch it. My sister and her friend does it.
Shows.
No hate to anybody that does watch them, but for me, it's a little bit harder to invest, because I'm always like, well, it's just like, you don't know these people. There's a bajillion fish in the sea. If it's not one of these 20 people, I don't know if you need to bend over backwards this hard to make it all work. Like, the investment just feels a little bit easier to be like, okay, well, you just want to be on TV.
Well, it's interesting that you went from post-production to pre-production. Was that it's very different?
It was a little scary, but I kind of I left the job that I was at in post-production there, because it kind of hit a spot where it didn't feel like there was any more upward movement for me in that spot. So I kind of chose to leave there and kind of just see like what I could do on my own. I had faith in like my production ability and what I was doing on that aspect of being able to organize a team and get a team going towards a goal. So I was applying to just places on LinkedIn, and I saw a spot for Halon. And when I was looking into it, I knew there would be a learning gap, because I saw the reels, but at the same time, it felt similar enough to post-production of reality in a weird way that I wasn't too scared, because in reality post-production, you've got say 7 story producers who are all putting together a cut for 8 editors who are all individually working on different aspects and different acts of different episodes. And so they're all doing different things that you then have to get together and give to these assistant editors who put it all together into one piece, who then deliver it to the client, which is the same to a certain degree of collecting all of your guys' shots, getting them into one piece from the editors, packaging it up for there's elements of that production pipeline that are fundamentally the same. It's about more the nuance in between of whether or not you can be effective.
Yeah, I always thought that it would be hard for all the production coordinator I worked with, because sometimes you would give us notes or we would give you notes to pass on to the soup or the lead. And there are very technical things that we were saying. So I was always like, how do I say it that it would be easy for everyone so that it wouldn't get miscommunicated and everything?
Yeah. And I think that one, I think as the managerial stuff, we wanted to take those on behalf of you guys so that you could work on the other things. But technically, I think if we're being for real, it was technically supposed to you guys be putting them in because they were so technical and all these things.
Truth bomb.
So if there's that, but also at least for me, again, like I said, I find myself to be curious. If there's a question that I don't know about, I like to ask. So I also, I like to be in the middle of those things to kind of just witness what's going on and understand. So I don't know. I'm not afraid to ask a dumb question or feel like I'm asking something that's obvious. Because for me, it's I don't know. I'd rather look dumb for a moment than save face and have it just be a time consumption for everybody else. So I was always on the side asking James hey, what does this mean? I don't know what this means.
That's probably why you learned everything so fast on Atlas, and that you were so amazing at your job that we all relied on you. We're like, if something happens to Blake, it's all gonna fall apart.
No, thank you. That's also a toxic trait of my own, where it's it's not on purpose, but I also being so helpful that my question
take over things.
Well, I'm to take over where it's I view. When I look at my job, especially as managerial, and especially with AI stuff coming in, my question is always how am I specifically as an individual useful? Not even as the production coordinator, not even as a project manager, but how am I, Blake, useful in all of this? And how am I I don't know, it's a little bit of imposter syndrome, especially when it's with you folks or anybody that has a specific degree and a study in a skill. There is a very technical, there's a way to this is gonna, I don't know, I know this sounds bad too, but there's a way to judge that work, even though it is very subjective still. There's a way to look at it and see, okay, this person can do this person can do this person can do this.
Yeah.
When you're looking at managerial bodies, it's a little bit harder to distinguish who has what special skills over other people, because it's a lot of communication, teamwork. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that is with each other, that unless you're saying it out loud to other people can be, just not known because you were just unaware. So for me, it was a mixture of, I am generally curious. I love movie making. I love filmmaking. I love all of the aspects of the pieces that go together towards a project. But I also wanted to be useful. I don't want to, I mean, it's partially, I don't want to look dumb, but also if I'm choosing this to be my career, if I'm choosing to move into this space, I'm gonna sort of need to know what I'm talking about, especially if I'm talking to my clients. If I'm sitting on a client call and they say something about renders and the number of iterations they can get in a certain amount of time, if I throw out just some random number that we're then beholden to, the only people that really affects is the animators who then have to go through and do it every day. So, it felt like my obligation to kind of know at least those elements to be effective. I kept sitting nervous that I was sitting way too down. Hello.
No, you did good job.
You were fine.
Alejandro doesn't care about any of this. I
really
was
don't.
like this the entire time. It's no, you're fine. You're someone else was like this.
No,
and I told them to move in the middle. And he's no, it's fine. Let him be comfortable.
The way I think about it
like
is,
a Harry Potter portrait.
You know what? They can answer me. The viewers can answer this. Are you actually watching, or are you just listening to us?
You see, the problem is that you always think all of our viewers are like you. You only listen and then you used to
okay,
it.
does
I watch.
I watch a podcast too, and I will have to say, if you aren't watching, I spent time and dedication in making my background look good for all of you. So I think that is a
Watch
requirement of
Blake's
you to come
background.
like, yeah.
Don't
There's-
watch. You don't need to show
There's my
everything.
laundry
Go back.
basket.
Go
There's my
back.
towel.
Mhm.
Oh,
No, see, look,
I also
I
have
painted
fun.
this is a cell. I painted this myself.
oh, that's very
Oh,
nice.
My
what?
favorite color, purple.
But there's some brown.
Yes, it's a some Robin Williams movie I don't know about. It was one of those like wine sipping paints. So I wasn't
No.
really. They told me
Robin
what
Those
to
are
paint, and I
nice.
did it. Yeah,
I want to do one of those ones.
Yeah, but here we can sit like a Harry Potter portrait and just
Wait, before you start, the reason why we're talking about our favorite colors is because you guys can't see, but Mr. Positive has a little sentence underneath his name saying, "What is your favorite color?" And we're waiting for Blake to see it. And apparently he did see it, but he didn't know if I should
He was too
mention it or
scared to
not.
say anything.
And
So
no,
he
it was
stopped to mention.
the producer and me saying this could potentially derail us from the topic at hand. It's too worried for our live broadcast.
I'm always curious as to what you guys had to go through in the pre-planning before getting into a shot, because like you said, you also need to know the people in the company, because then you're like, oh, hey, this so and so is good for this, so we'll add him into there, or
Yeah.
she's good at that. Like, I would love to hear more about that, like the pre-planning, if you can share.
Yeah, and I mean, I will preface this with like, again, I would only have been in visualization for 2 years. Like, I've only worked at Halon. Before that, it was all reality TV.
You were
all the time.
basically. I've only had 2 project managers, and you're one of them at Halon.
Yeah.
Wait, how? You were on so many different projects.
Didn't have many.
Interesting.
We had a lot of projects under our belts at any given time, which is a positive, and it's kind of the production thing I mentioned before, where it's like we do have the ability to kind of, we can work on 2 calendars almost simultaneously. Once we set up certain things a certain way, if it's done right, stuff can feed into itself that it doesn't take twice as much time to do 2 things.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was also, at least in the position that I was at, especially with Atlas, where I came in not at the beginning. I came in kind of as it was already started. But also as just an associate project manager on that level, I wasn't always super involved in the very first steps of the estimation process and the client conversations. That was usually the producers and the directors and kind of the higher ups negotiating all that stuff. But when we would look at team organization and kind of, what we can get done, what we can promise to a client, and what we can assure in terms of deliverables, usually stemmed from kind of like a general formula that we use to kind of break out what the averages would be for shots that we can put out, the quality of those shots, with the quality the client is asking for. I guess I'll preface all of that with it's a tough thing to prepare for anything like this, because the answer is always, how do you take what 4, 5, 6 different people are envisioning in their head, put it on paper, number one, but also agree on what that looks like and agree to the amount of effort you will put in before you say, that's what we agreed on.
Yeah.
So basically, I know I feel weird talking about it, and not because I think it's like a negative thing or because I think that it was done in a negative way. It just feels weird to quantitate art and like what you guys are doing, and it's especially in what was always kept in mind, and what I always appreciated as we had these conversations was, while we talked about averages and these things and these other like aspects of the individual shots, we always kept in mind, individual shots have different difficulties. They have different requirements. They have different elements. They have these different things, which I really liked Atlas for, because it allowed because we were working on the same things in different capacities for a long amount of time, it allowed us to kind of adjust in increments in ways that eventually what I was using to prepare for other shows that I learned from Atlas was, by averaging out our metrics and planning for deadlines and amounts of shots and keeping kind of our standard of where we should be, it allowed us to move more individually in the days, if that makes sense. So I tried to apply that and when we tried to apply it to new projects in similar ways, it was looking at shots, kind of quickly dividing out the difficulty, the requirements, the expectations.
Who would tell you what the difficulty is? The soup?
Well, no, it was a conversation between the clients and the producers, in terms of fidelity, because it was, I mean, that's also a thing too, is like, I don't want to speak out of turn again. I'm only 2 years in, so I part of this could completely be naivete on my part, but it does feel like there's kind of, in terms of visualization and pre-visualization, there, as you guys know, there's a lot of different fidelity levels within that.
Yeah.
You could have a grayscale chess piece thing that nobody's moving. They're just sliding through things just for layout. You could have something that's so intricate that facial animations and previs that are going through. And I think for people that don't work day to day in this industry specifically, like especially pre-visualization, it's hard to kind of imagine that there's all those levels in between, or not, or like when you hear what it is, you're expecting like, oh, well, I'm just going to get the great final version every time. Like it's pre-visualization. I'm going to get that eventually. It's like, well, no, eventually if you pay for that, but if you only have this amount of money, we can get you more bang for your buck, honestly, if we reduce some of the quality of maybe perhaps the individual movement, and we can do longer sections, or we can do more intricate
you charge by movement. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Well, not even like that. It's not even by, it's not by that. It's overall, it's having those conversations to understand what the overall package is. And so like once you can kind of understand what element they're looking at there, you can say, okay, cool. So you want this level, or you can kind of jockey like what they're looking for and help decipher what it is that will benefit them the most. Because if it is you need more intricate animation, you need to see it like almost more final. Do you want a larger team to get it done faster in a short amount of time? Do you want just a few people because you have more time? It's a lot of how much money do you have in this amount of time? How many variations do you want? How much adjustability do you want? How stuck to you are you with the script? How much is it going to change in that amount of time?
It's interesting how you know all of this before it starts. From an animator standpoint, we figured that out after a few shots, or like maybe after 2 weeks, because then we'll get in the beginning, like they will tell us, oh, you could just move them, and the most important thing is the camera. Don't worry about all like extra stuff in it. Sometimes you'll get, figure out the camera, and he needs to walk great to that point and then do this specific thing, make sure the weight's working. And then the first week ends, and then we get like changes in the second week, and they're like, oh yeah, no, change the whole thing. And then you realize, okay, it's one of those projects when I have time, I just need to get it to the detail that they want.
Time.
Well, and
the project had time.
And I think that was, and I think that that's something that, like, I mean, I'll put that to my own, like, youngness in the industry. And I think we worked with a lot of people that were semi-new tubers. Like, that's where I mean with the visualization thing of, like, compared to traditional animation, or even just, like, if I just throw out the word animation, I view it as, like, kind of the traditional, everything is kind of stuck to it. You're doing this to get to the final detail and do all of these like really great work. You want it to be real lifelike. You want it to or fit to whatever, style that you're sticking to. Where with pre-visualization, which I think is where we got to with some of the newer stuff and some of the more direct questions we asked but the objectives we tried to provide with the teams was more of the client wants to do an action sequence. They want to figure out, they don't know what it looks like. These are the pieces. They have no idea. They have no idea what it looks like. They're giving us free reign. So let's not spend time doing all of the arm movements. Let's not spend time doing this. Block it out, throw it out, do whatever. Don't worry about these things, which sounds weird and almost counterintuitive to a degree. But when you know that it's being, I don't want to say thrown away, but when you know that it's being potentially just thrown away, there's a certain unattachedness, I guess you have to have, that I think was something that, at least from my perspective, I didn't even realize was there in the beginning. And I felt the need to kind of say to people a lot for that same thing of like, this has nothing to do with what you've done. That it has nothing to do with the work you've done. They literally just saw and were like, you know what? We just prefer them to do a cartwheel. And like, that's literally the conversation. It's not like, oh, it looks weird. And so like, they're like, it doesn't look right. So like, let's not do the somersault. It's just like, you know what? Let's just do the cartwheel. And like, that's the whole conversation. And I have to come back to you guys like, hey, I know you worked like 4 days on that. And it looks great. But like,
I love those though. I mean, no, I say it now because I've been out. I lie. I hated those, but I love one of the last projects me and Alejandro worked on at Halon was a game cinematics project. And I remember that was one of those where they were just like, yeah, this is the general idea. Figure it out. We're giving you free range. I love the free range because you really had to visualize it from the ground up. But then that's the problem would be that they would come back and say, oh yeah, no, this whole section done. Do it this way. And then you would do it that way. And they were like, oh, and actually what you did the first time was better. And then you're like, but what?
Yeah.
So it has its pros and cons.
Well, and then you also throw in it reminds me of another variable that's thrown in there too, of where it's as a company, you know, while you agree to the certain terms and services of the contract, you also, you know, you always want to impress somebody a little bit. You always want to go above and beyond, like, not to sound like, you know, dismissive of it, but like to a certain degree, delivery is the bare minimum. Like final delivery of the project at like complete to what's agreed upon is like the bare minimum. So everybody wants to go above and beyond, but then you run this certain, you run that line of how much do we give? How much do we guarantee? Because then you run the risk of we want them to come back. But if they come back and we've given them too much and now this is their expectation versus the extra. And that's not even specifically with animation or previews. That's with anybody. That's like honestly, that's production. That's business as a whole. But it's really with production where it's you sell your thing and you want to do a great job and you have the idea and it's great in your mind, but then power outage, loss of a server, tape goes missing, references don't come through, and it's nobody's fault. There's nothing you can do about it, but at the same time it's like you got to make up that difference. You can't just say like, oh, my bad, sorry guys, we can't get you these last 5 shots because something happened, oops, sorry, hope your movie's good. So there's always those extra things that are like that you have to also keep in your mind, because it's also when you've got all of these teams and all these people and all these projects stuff, when you've got 10 people, 20, when we were working Atlas with 22 people on a team for, you know, that was those were big days going on, you know. So like I know I've listened to episodes, and I heard it.
Okay, real quick, which one's favorite? Which one's your favorite?
I haven't listened to all of them, so I can't say. And I know all of them, so it feels like I'm picking favorite people. I did like listening to Shravia's because I liked hearing about her move. I liked hearing about her move. I liked hearing about all that stuff. So I had probably not talked to her in the longest, so it was nice to hear that catch up. Nice. But when I was hearing a chunk of Rob's, when we were talking, you guys were talking about Atlas and like the deadlines and things. No, it wasn't.
We went really open on Rob's.
But that's where I wanted. That's I appreciate that, because I don't know. For me too, as a project manager, communication is like a big thing, because it's not the only way to make it any better is to know how everybody's feeling. And that's why I said the thing with like the deadlines, the 5 o'clock thing, and like all of these things and all these buckets. What we eventually realized with Atlas specifically was this was the ask. All 13 of these sequences, it was this many shots. They were giving us lists of all these things. And really the only way to ever know if we were on track or know we were capable or feel confident in what we were doing was to literally be like, all right, it has to be this many per day, this many per whatever. And that's why I eventually got down to like individual, like shot grid, that shot grid I feel so proud of sometimes, of like how intricate it was. Thank you. Because what it allowed us to do at the end of the day was like, it wasn't really about making sure all of these shots got done at the end of the day, but by updating it and checking in with people and doing all these things and basically saying, here is the expectation for today. The hope was that it allowed us to micromanage less. That it was like, if you guys know, like at the very least, this is what is expected of today. If you get it done by today, I'm not going to worry about what you're doing at 2 o'clock. You know, like if something comes up, let me know. If you think it's whatever. But that's kind of where those things came in. And then what allowed us to do at the end of the day was, if these ones didn't get done, you shift what their status is. They move into the next day and you see, okay, great. This is a heavy day. There's 24 shots that need to get done and there's only 10 people. And then we would go in and say, okay, these shots that are technically due Friday are easier shots. We can get them done quicker. Let's move those up. We can have somebody knock them out real quick, get them off our list, free up Friday, and then we can have 3 days to knock out these 4 shots. So if this one takes 2 days longer.
That's why I had the lowest anxiety level ever on Atlas. Like in my whole career, Atlas was the only project that I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't nervous about changing things because I knew who to go to. And yeah, it was amazing, man. I missed being on that project.
That makes me feel so proud. And truly, I mean, sorry, Alejandro, I keep seeing you talk and it's just me that will always
I was just going to say, I was the one that you guys would send all the stuff that it's like, oh, it's the easy stuff. Get Alejandro to go do it real quick. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah.
Why would you always give me the hardest stuff then?
Well, it was honestly, it was not even that. It was because there is an element too of like, what I was going to say too was I couldn't have done it at all without James, especially like
shout out James.
Really, truly,
shout out
I know
James.
you guys said it on
Amazing.
that one too, but he truly I worked with a lot of supervisors in general. None of them are bad. I'll never whatever. But having worked with him for so long, I don't know. I believe that he truly, genuinely, obviously cared about every one of you, but he also understood, I think, all of his team members individually, and that's where the tasking came out and like the ease or whatever. It was like it was about who could do what, but also about, I don't know. There was a lot of elements. So I think that team went really well because there really was like an element of, and I do credit the fact that it was very long. A lot of these are so short that it's hard to have that, to learn that much. But it really was, I think, because we just got to know each other all very well. And it was easy to kind of have, towards the end, it was much easier to just have conversations and just say things out loud of like, okay, but what do you need? Like, what are you asking me? Like, but what are you saying? And I think that is ultimately, that's what I always strive for. And that's what I think Atlas taught me and what I try to take into the new shows. And what I think I will continue to take into any of the new shows I do is, and it's at the top of my resume too, because I think it's so important, is like clear, concise, and communicated expectations.
Yeah.
Like if everybody knows what they are expected to do, you can trust people more, because it is about, like, all of it really is about trust ultimately, that you can entrust people to do what they're doing, not only individually, but understand what we're doing as a group. And I think a lot of that can be kind of forgotten, especially remotely. I hate remote work. Hate's a strong word, but I don't know. I'm a very, I will admit that I think I'm biased because I'm a supervisor managerial position, is like, I feel like being in a room with everybody just provides such a different,
it's easier.
There's just so much less weird minutia that builds up to be these things that are ultimately problems.
Wait, would you rather do hybrid or full like go to the office?
I think I would do, I don't know. I'm a weird one to ask because I have a lot of energy, so I would
want to go to the office
full time. But I also I do like hybrid, but I do like remote for the ability to work with a lot of people, and I do really like the freedom that it allows individuals who have, focused more focused disciplines to live in areas other than Los Angeles or these hubs. And
it's fully okay to hate remote work. You can fully say, I do hate it.
I hate that too, but it has its perks.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm not good at being inside a lot, and that's
Same.
kind of it. Like, to be in my apartment all day
all
long
the time
it's tough for me, and that's also like, I don't know. That's a life change for me too. Of like, I don't know. Full disclosure, I quit drinking about 4 years ago for other reasons that were had a lot to do with like career stuff, and had a lot to do with feeling like I was putting a lot of time into work. It was bleeding into every aspect of my life. I was working weekends. I was on call at midnights. I was working night times. Like I was on top of, my best friends passed away from cancer when we were 25. In the midst of all of that, like, it was just, I was putting a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of concentration on work and projects and all of these things.
Yeah.
And it was ultimately leading to these things where it was, okay, great, we did it, thank you, everybody wrap up and bye, see you next time. And it was like, what am I doing this for? Am I losing these aspects of myself and giving them up as sacrifice for what? It's not helping me in my career. It's not really building me any extra oomph in these areas where people are noticing.
But going back to the working from home thing, I think another factor. No, it's okay.
I forgot that's where we had even started.
That's why we're here. It's okay. The other factor for me is, I think, because I'm single, I have no one other than my parrot at home. And that doesn't help the situation. Like, we've been talking to our guests, and a lot of them that really like working from home is because they have a family. They get to see their kids grow up. They get to hang out with their wives or their husbands. I get to hang out with myself. I get bored. I'm tired. I need to have a conversation with someone. Meetings are not enough. There may be half an hour here or there, an hour here or there.
Podcast, right?
And that's why I have a podcast now.
Well, and that's where I would end up just then babbling for half an hour and turning a 15-minute meeting into 45. Not talking talking about work most of the time, but then also talking about random things, just because it's like, humans,
seeing how everyone's doing.
Hi.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have a potential nickname. It really plays off of the Mr. Positive. So it's like it's for the podcast, but it's also, no spoiler alerts, it's also kind of not really a nickname. What if it was Mr. Because you just said that you balance each other out and sort of being optimistic and pessimistic and like high and low. Mr. Positive and sort meh. Yes, it's not that different. Yes, it's not that different.
But doesn't that make me seem like I'm very boring?
No, I mean, I could potential, but to me, it's also like a, yeah, but I'm not gonna take that seriously. Cool with it. Yeah, like I hear you. It's important, but like I'm not gonna water off a duck's back almost.
That actually is kind of like who I am. Other than not thinking about the layoffs and how extreme I reacted, the rest I'm usually like that. Yeah. Like, someone criticizes me and I don't like it.
I'm just gonna keep saying
that's why I said it wasn't a very good one. It was purely just I read your name in front of me in like big font and was like, oh,
yeah,
it was perfect. I actually like that nickname.
Well, we'll put it to vote, please. Everyone, comment and let me know if that works.
Comment down below. Yeah. Let us hear your thoughts.
Please, I want to hear your thoughts. I like answering you guys in the YouTube comments all the time.
Yeah, on Spotify. Don't forget Spotify.
Check that much.
Anywhere you can get your podcast.
You talk to Sorme on Spotify.
Yeah,
YouTube is me.
No, it's both of us, man. Don't make it look bad.
You never answer. I always answer.
Because you always answer quickly. That doesn't mean that I don't check.
You guys.
Just like,
thank you.
I've got that YouTube Premium. I'll go in there and join the whole fan club and do all the live.
Yeah, nice.
No ads for me. We'll see how long that lasts my unemployment. That's the one thing I'm still splurging on.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like you're going to get a job soon.
I do too.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all going to get a job.
People are desperate to like get, they're not desperate for work, but like people are like, it just feels like everybody wants to go do stuff. So I'm hoping that creativity, it pops and we all just get right back to where we're at.
If we don't have strikes in July, it's going to happen.
I mean, they said they signed.
We are in July.
They said they signed?
Yeah, IATSE signed.
They agreed with the terms?
Said for the next 3 years. That's what said.
Oh, I didn't know this. That's huge.
It was just a couple of days ago. So like, I mean, I was repeating everything everybody said, but like, it does sound like we're swinging up at least to start some stuff back up, because I'm hearing like there's like it's real drain up everywhere. So
good to know.
Get out there.
We'll start and end on a good news. Whatever I decide to put.
And
whichever way the scale is.
There you go. Back to the show.
Because I have a roommate. It's my one of my best friends who I've known since college. We've known each other for 12 years.
Oh, nice.
But she has been working from the office. So for the last year especially, it's like it really was me all day. And then once the day ends, we're not both sitting here in the apartment. So there would be long swaths of time where like, especially now being unemployed, where there's like just me and LinkedIn, and the robots who tell me no. It
gets to you.
It does.
Like, no matter how positive you are, it just gets to you somehow.
And then what are you supposed to do? Go out into the big cities of California where everything is free and parking doesn't cost a thing, and you can just go have a fun time without any money.
That's why you got a bike.
Yeah,
Get a bike in San Francisco. Get a bike. Yeah, sure.
I will totally do that.
You forget the hills here.
Yeah.
I'm actually going this week to ride the hills there.
Oh no,
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to watch you. Let me know when you're going to be
you
around
go down
here.
Lombard Street.
Oh,
That's my goal.
Important thing is go back up Lombard Street. Going down is fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Could do that too. Well, okay.
No,
now that I got to pause
nobody can do that. I don't think it's been done in the history of the world.
I will
It's too
correct you on that
hard.
one. But going back to what you were saying about being a project manager and how to justify like when we were finished, I will say on my behalf, and I'm assuming Sorme and everyone else was, you guys definitely made everything so easy for us. Like it was, the communication was great, and then just throwing out like, hey, you know, we have a tight deadline, but we do have time, so you guys can still put in the work. It made us just feel comfortable.
That, and also honestly, our meetings were fun. Like
Yes.
I've been on a lot of projects now, and sometimes you dread the meeting, sometimes you know they're gonna go long. With you guys, sometimes we knew it was gonna go long, but it would be fun to go long because, like you said, you would just have a conversation like a normal person at an office.
Well,
We'll
and
talk about our days and other things too, not just work.
And I credit Casey with a good amount of that too, with the don't stop talking I would never get the long name, the bomb game. But all those things too were like, again, I can't speak outside of visualization really, so for the other ones, but I really valued that our visualization team as a whole, like team health and like mentality and growth and community was really important to us, because especially when remote, like what else is there? Like the days are hard in any production. The days are hard. They're difficult. They are personal when they're not meant to be. It's like, it's a difficult thing to do. The very least that we can do is have a little bit of fun and pretend that we're like in a real world. Like we can be friends and not just like boxes and coworkers, you know? And so I think I'm glad to hear that, because that really, like, that's always an important thing of mine. And that's where I think too, it comes into play the expectations and like laying things out. It's like, if you can say that to everybody, it really is easier for everybody to be like, okay, I can take time away. I know what I'm doing. I know that I can step away for 30 minutes and that nothing's going to be on fire.
We usually ask, the new question that we ask is, how did you feel the day you got laid off? But I feel like from you, I can ask a double question. How does it feel when you are there and the layoff's going to happen? And again, you don't need to answer if you don't want to, or you can just have snippets of answers. But then, how does that work when you're still there and you're a production coordinator? And also, how did you feel the day you got laid off?
So I'll preface it by saying I have no issues speaking. Like I don't think I have anything that offensive to say, so I'm not going to be worried about saying anything. I mean, I also said a lot of stuff in my HR meeting, so that's also fine too. Like I'm in general, I don't know. I like to use my voice. I am not afraid of saying something, or getting criticized for things. I did a lot of marching band growing up. I did a lot of like subjective kind of like performance sports. So like, I feel okay taking constructive criticism so long as it's constructive criticism and it's not just what feels like somebody.
Should I get a bowl of popcorn ready?
Right? No. That was just the problem.
This sounds like it's gonna be good.
No. But all that to say is like, I legitimately, like, I was at a level where I didn't know about all of them either. I like legitimately, I was not in on the conversations about them. If I ever heard rumblings, it was always kind of the same thing. Like there was always kind of a little bit. I mean, not even because it was Halo, but because of the industry. Like once the strikes hit, like everybody knew what that meant. And like I had mentioned previously, it's like when there's not a project, it's really hard to keep things moving at the same capacity. Because like when it is even 10 people on a team, one day racks up very quickly, and I don't know. It's I waffle back and forth. And that's not to say like it's hard to. I see both sides. I see both sides. They're good sides. They're good people on both sides. But no, I see the business sides. I wish that in general, and this is where I don't know legally what ties bind and what isn't allowed to be said on behalf of all of who is saying the news. But I legitimately didn't know anything, and I found out kind of when everybody else did. I found out about when I was laid off, I was actually on vacation on Thursday, the Thursday and Friday.
Dang.
Well, here's the way that it happened. I had taken a vacation because my cousin was going to Las Vegas, and so I could fly out for very cheap and just stay in her hotel room for free.
Nice.
So I had done that, and while I was gone, there was a round of layoffs, and I was like, "Oh man, that fucking sucks." Excuse me.
You can say it's okay.
No, yeah,
I know, but I don't. I'm trying to be a proper lady. They and I was like, that sucks. I'm really upset that I'm unable to see anybody, and it also made me nervous. I was like, that's not a good sign because I really had no idea, and that was when it was like Kyla, and when it was like people that like were in new levels of hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so I was nervous, but then I came back Monday, and then when I got there at 8:45, there was a meeting on my calendar put on for 9:30, and so I kind of figured that's But I think that's kind of that is the legal way that has to be done anywhere. So it's hard to I don't know. It's hard to. I wish that they had been able. I wish that somebody had told us. I wish that we had given heads up. I wish that there had been more of a humanitarian side to it. But I do understand legally what has to be done, especially as this giant corporation that isn't just them, that is this parent company with a that to me just goes back to my hatred of capitalism and
the laws in the US are not helping the situation, because hearing what Shravia went through in England and their laws and how different it is, I'm like, oh wow.
Oh yeah, no, that sounded so much nicer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes you not feel like you want to
and that's why it's hard
industry anymore.
And that's why it's kind of
hard
hard
to see where you're going.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint who what the monster under the bed is, because it all sucks, but it's hard to pinpoint
Capitalism.
What could be done. Honestly, that's what it boils down to, is is all of that. It's how indisposable kind of everybody is to the giant machine that is the economy, it's but
did you have a few days, or was it that day?
Yes,
I
had
Monday,
a few days.
That's done,
no,
goodbye.
Monday they told me my last day would be Wednesday and all that. It was pretty quick. I think it's been filming far enough. I think that we can talk about these things. It's been 3 months, so I have to think. But it was all. It for all intents and purposes, the way that it happened, it sucks. Being laid off sucks. It sucks. And I was angry, and I let my feelings be known about what I thought could have been done differently over the past 2 years that could have perhaps prevented the way in which things had to be done. Had to be done. The industry in and of itself is resistant to changing the status quo. Nobody wants that's why I always I get kind of frustrated. I last at places around 2 years in terms of freelance stuff, because that's usually where it hits, where then I get frustrated. I'm I've been here long enough that I feel like you should be trusting what I'm saying, and I feel like what I'm saying is confidently backed up by all of this stuff that I'm saying and showing you. And if that is not being valued, I'm good. We've reached our end of our relationship and our growth. And that was, I wasn't feeling that necessarily specific. It was what sucks was that I think that, not even I think, the world would be different if the strikes hadn't hit. That is really the thing that sucks, because I truly, truly feel especially at the end of, what would that in 2020? Oh my God, was that 2020? End of 2022? When we were really still, because
it was 2022.
We were
doing
good.
Really well.
Yeah.
Really well.
At that point, that's when the stuff that we had learned from Atlas was I felt very confident that we could implement that stuff and use shock grid and way. And so that, I think, is what extra sucked about feeling that blow, was that it really was all of these shows. It wasn't oh no, the shows are stopping coming in. It was this show is gone. This show is gone. This show is gone. And it was like literally like we saw just like months that were ahead disappear, like months that were set disappear. And that's the kind of thing that is like difficult for, number one, that to happen, and then also like, and what that does mean, unfortunately, is that like we have nowhere else to put those people. And it's like one of those things where it's like, well, what do we do for these other teams? Do we say out of nowhere, hey, like, I know it wasn't technically your guys' show, but like, unfortunately, this show got let go, so that we're gonna keep this person instead of you. So you're gonna have to, like, we can't do like that for team. Like, it's such a like, it's a puzzle, you know, that like, and that's what really sucked for me overall about all of it, was that it really felt like we were hitting our stride right before those strikes hit, and it just never recovered in the way that we all expected it to. Hoping with the Nazi strikes that still comes, but
yeah.
I'm just hoping that with all these changes that happened, that companies that laid so many people off hopefully learn something from everything that happened. I really truly feel like, I'm sure a lot of people gave feedback when they got laid off. Some people in a good way, some people just because they were mad, but still there were feedback. So I'm hoping that it gets to some people's ears and then stays and sticks, so that when we all go back to work.
Yeah, and that's where the line, not to, I won't go on a full other tangent again about it all, but that's where I think too, the lesson is also like, for all of it is, and again, this isn't anything specific for St. It's literally just in general, all productions, a budget is a budget for a reason. Like, you can go over, you can go under, you can do whatever, but like, ultimately, like, you need to stick to these things as close as humanly possible. And whether or not you can pay OT, whether or not you can ask these people to stay, whether or not you can do all that, if you're ghosting hours, giving away free work, setting these expectations that you literally cannot continue to pay for, is it worth it?
Yeah,
because it's a flash in the pan that, like, I don't know. And again, it's not, and I'm not even thinking about anything specifically, but we've seen studios shutter time and time again after these big, grand, great projects that should be, you know, stepping stones, but like, they're just unreproducible. Because it's like, when you, especially if it's like, if I don't know, we see with all the Marvel stuff going on now too, you can ask people to do these things and spend this time and do all this and hope that they're fine with it and hope that the merit and the credit potentially is worth it. But if you have to do that every single time, because that's
not productive.
It's not, you can't, it's unsustainable, and it leads to this kind of overindulgence of like, some people are getting paid exorbitant amounts for doing things that are essentially the same thing as other people, but it's because of this weird history where it's like, we're at a point where it's like, it's almost like two worlds are still melding, the old world of Hollywood and the new world of Hollywood. And like, and on top of, like, with animation, where it's like old styles of animation with new styles of animation, and this like change, not that one is taking over the other, but as they work together, it's just like a new frontier is there, and like, change has to occur, and it can't just be, we try the same old every time until we just see what sticks. Like, take a risk, make a change. Not to quote Man in the Mirror, but like, like, if doing the same thing doesn't change the outcome, change the way you do it.
Are you going to survive to 25, or you think you're going to be better? Like
225? No, I mean, it's rough out there, because it's not. I thought that I would be a little bit safer being in managerial positions.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
And I thought I'd be especially safer too with reality and with a little bit of visualization, but reality is kind of in the same boat. Like, especially with it having been IATSE recently, that was kind of waiting to see how the negotiations went. They use a lot of the same people for a lot of those same kind of shoots and bigger projects. You know, everybody was just too nervous that what essentially happened at the end of 2022 is going to happen again, that you promise all these things, get everybody set up, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm hoping that things open up, but it's also tough because it's now July. A ton of people just graduated again, and they're all, going for these PA spots, these coordinator spots that I don't want to be going for. But when there's 100 people that are going for a project manager position, I've only been doing it for 2 years. I'm gonna have to just bite the bullet and go a little bit lower than expected. But now we've got these people coming up that do and should have a chance to step into the industry.
So you're actively looking for a job?
Yes.
At all levels, it sounds like.
Because it took me a few months to be able to handle my emotional state and then start applying.
I am playing it off a little bit better than it went. I have been actively looking as I see things that sound good to me. I'm yet to get to the point where I'm just applying to any and everything because I'm desperate for that.
Desperate.
We're getting there. It's gonna be soon.
We are. It's
gonna be soon. But I've also I'm to go completely off of work stuff. I'm also a member of the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, and so with June having just happened, we were hella busy. There was stuff going on all month.
Nice.
So I've
at
been
least you're busy. That's good.
I've been very lucky to be able to throw myself into that and be outside and be at these events and do all these things, and especially singing and being a part of music and something that's completely separate from work but feels fulfilling has been a game changer. I've been unemployed before, for a month or two where I haven't had that, and it's been a different story. So having something that just is fulfilling has been really helpful.
But
it ended this month, so we'll see how July goes. But we got a summer break before the next season, so
no. But you know what you can do? There's a good tip. You can come to San Francisco for a good vacation and meet people like us.
Yeah.
So basically, what she's saying is, can you come up here to hang out with us?
Yes,
I took the Amtrak once. I've been wanting to take a nice long train ride. I can see how that goes too.
Yeah.
I assume that there's one that connects Los Angeles.
Probably.
Yeah.
It would be stupid if it's not. There is.
That's why everybody comes to the Crispy Train podcast so that they know these answers.
Crispy Train podcast.
That's the episode. That's the episode name right there.
Crispy Train podcast.
I mean, that's what it is. We're all just riding these different trains, and we're all hoping to stay on the same one. But freelance in this industry, ultimately, I want to do this for a long time. I love doing it, but I do feel this kind of battle and this kind of application process and this kind of fighting is an inevitable part of it for who knows how long. And so to ride that train, to make it a joyful ride, to enjoy the time and the company and the people, and trade stations when you can and upgrade and get off when you don't, it really is what it's about. Customize and make the journey as good as you can for you, because it's never going to be the opposite. Hollywood is a fickle mistress, and she will pass right over you if you're unavailable at the time.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So you gotta just enjoy it while you can. Take the opportunities you can. I have, I've worked on shows. I worked on Catfish for a long time, and the benefit of that is that it's on its 10th season. MTV loves the show. There's 500, 700 episodes. No, there's 800 plus episodes. But it was lucky to I worked with those people for 7 years. I still hang out with them now. I haven't worked at that company for 6 years. I watch their dogs. I'm going to hang out with some of them on Friday, and that's the thing where it's it's always about the journey than it is about the destination.
I'm really glad that we got to hang out on Atlas for that long.
Me too.
And that we have this relationship. I just wish that we're closer, that we could actually watch over each other's dogs. Well, or you over my pirate.
I hung out with Blake basically on every project that James was on. So
yeah, same.
Got lucky there.
Yeah. And I'm very glad that you hopped on this podcast train today. Thank you so much.
Asked me. I was going to say, any opportunity to talk to myself, I have to take I'll feign at least a little bit resistance for a second.
But you kept saying I'm not interesting. I'm like, of course you're interesting.
Not that I'm not interesting. It's just as assuming that the audience are animators and people that are looking for some specific help, I was just nervous that 2 years wasn't quite enough to be able to bestow any valuable.
No, it's showing a different perspective so people can also understand. Even people that are at a job right now, you should appreciate your production coordinators, everyone. They
I forget
work
how much
really hard.
Well, and I forget how much time we do spend together, how much time also though like is spent separately and like in meetings that never get talked about, or conversations that like in my mind like, oh yeah, well this makes sense because of all of these things we've said, but then I never said a word of it to anybody else, so how would you all know? I forget about that aspect sometimes. So like that's also
exactly.
you know.
Well,
All right,
if you come to San Francisco, we'll do a live with you.
Yes,
and we'll hang out again.
100%.
Please do. Let us know.
Yeah, of course. So normally we ask our guests like, what movie got you to become an animator? But in your case, it's what movie got you to feel like I want to be in the industry? Movie, TV show,
reality show,
doesn't matter.
Okay. This is like a little bit of like a which culture, like it's more of it's a little bit of a favorite TV show, but I think it really is the answer. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Melissa Joan Hart one.
Great
yes,
show.
I forgot about that one. That
love
was a
that
good one.
love that show. I saw Melissa Joan Hart once at a Trader Joe's here, and I freaked out because we also share the same birthday, April 18th, Aries. Not obsessed or anything, but that show I think had all of the elements that I really like. Like I know I said it before too, but I love movies, but what I think I love more is movie making. Like I like
it makes complete sense that you were in production now.
Yeah, like I love like the idea, and I say Sabrina because like
the behind the scenes,
the sets. I love like the idea of studio sets, like a studio audience. I love the idea of live filming and being able to like do magic on television, and it was also like comedy, and it was like all of these things, all these different elements. I think that came together. That was just like it created magic. It was a different kind of world. I like, you know, as a kid, like I always wanted to like step through the TV so I could have like magic powers or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately is like also why I like pre-visualization, especially in visualization. It is all of those elements. It is. And it's like, and while everybody's like, oh, it's like digital, it's all these different things. It's like, it is traditional filmmaking. Like you go to the Academy Museum, you see these giant matte paintings that people painted to make these faux backgrounds. You see these giant forced perspective props that people are doing. You see plates. You see even in old animation of like cell, like, you know, the I can't think of the term now, but with the individual cells and like that what Disney did with like
the big projector and how they do every layer.
Yes. What's the difference between that and doing a comp for a post shot with you guys?
Yeah.
Like the same. Though it's technology is evolving, but like filmmaking is the same.
Yeah.
You know? And that's where I love what pre-visualization and visualization could potentially offer for all of us too, because I don't know, immersion is one of my favorite things. I love 4DX theater. I love anything IMAX, all that kind of stuff. And I think that visualization can help with a lot of immersive stuff too, and take
that reminds me, sorry to cut you off, but that's really, I got excited. I remember that we did your love of K-pop was when I got into K-pop. I was like, oh my god, I found someone at work that also liked K-pop. And then I remember we had a K-pop channel, and I was like, oh, this is so magical. And then one of your comments was that you would love, I don't remember who you were talking to about this, maybe Kyla, and you were like, we should use like reach out to these groups because they have so many options for green screens and these visualizations that we can do for their background. It's a whole like thing that we can tap into, and no one's doing it. And I was like, oh, he's smart. Like, why I have never thought about that.
Here's the thing. I love throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks. I can sometimes be too much of an optimist, but then I also swing that I would be a very pessimist. But like, I don't know. Things like that are always just cool to me. Why? Like, I like to see how we can be on the cutting edge of things, and not that we weren't doing those options there as well, but there's so many ways to break the mold. Yeah, like truly, like even and the K-pop thing too, like any sort of stage, but like even the Sphere in Vegas, like there's ways to, like,
that was so cool.
There's ways to like imitate that, like I don't know, even like the number of bars and lounges at like Las Vegas and place that now have faux LED screens behind windows to mimic things, like what you could do if you like made a fake bus and put some screens out there and like animated like some sort of like, it's like Universal too when you go on the tram and they do the Need for Speed thing. Like I don't know, there's just that's
so
what
many
I love,
options.
and that's what I love about movies and movie making, and why I like doing all of this stuff is like it's fun to like step out of it a little bit, the immersion, being a part of it. And that's why I think previs ultimately is great too, because it improves all of that, and it could go so much further too.
I agree.
But yeah, Sabrina,
Alejandro, go Alejandro, go.
Wait, what question am I asking again?
No question. The ending.
I know. I'm keeping an eye on the time too, so I don't go fully. Take you guys to
don't
your
worry,
longest one yet.
So not normally. Every time we ask our guests to do the ending for us, and do you know what our line is?
I don't think so. I saw Sherwin's opening, and then I was nervous about that, so I was trying to prep.
Oh, we should totally do that too.
We're definitely doing the opening with you instead.
So we basically tell the guests to say whatever they want, and then just say goodbye.
No, that's not true. I'm never gonna ask you to do this again. So the guest is supposed to say, "Let's stay crispy, and we'll see you next time." But if you want to add anything to that, feel free.
Too much pressure.
Just let's stay crispy is the important part. The rest is fine.
Let's stay crispy and come on, ride that train.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Choo choo.
Bye.